Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Undercooled, a materials education podcast. We are going strong in season 2 here, and one of our most popular season 1 episodes was our interview with the MMS then president, Alexa. And so, in the spirit of replicating success and feeding the algorithm, we've brought back an MMS president, but it's a new person this time. So, I am very pleased to have our this year's student president, Micah, with us to talk about student societies again in material science and engineering. Micah, thank you for coming and being here on the show.
Thank you, Tim, for inviting me. I'm excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, well, let's get right to it. Usually we start with introductions. So can you just tell a bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into material science?
Okay, yeah. So I'm Micah Gendich. I am a senior here in the material science department at University of Michigan, and I was born and raised in Rochester Hills, Michigan. So I've been local my whole life. Um, and so yeah, from starting from high school, I was very interested in chemistry, physics, math, all the sort of relevant STEM fields. Um, And so I knew I wanted to be an engineer from there. And then once I started doing college visits, I actually visited Michigan Tech up in the UP,
Oh,
and it's a very great school. I love the place up there, but I I was actually given this question of which department do I want to meet with, and I was not really prepared for this, so I picked the one I didn't know anything about. I knew the least about. I saw material science. I haven't even heard of it. So I met with the head of the department up there, and we actually went through all their facilities, and I saw sort of what their content was about. And I became infatuated with the idea of material science and manipulating materials for design goals. So then when I took a tour of University of Michigan, I then checked out the material science department here. I saw there's um, a lot of opportunity in this department, a lot of equipment to use. So again, it fed my infatuation with the whole degree. So yeah. Then when I got to school, I started taking material science courses, and here I am.
and here you are.
Yeah.
Well, we're certainly very happy to have you here. Um, the other part of the intro is you've already kind of mentioned, all right, so you're a senior in MSE, you've been doing this for a few years now. What are you up to this year? You're being the MMS president, but just what else do you have going on academically? And are you starting to think about the great beyond, the time after graduation? What might you like to do when you're out of here?
Yes, the famous question. What are the future plans? So this semester, I'm actually also a department ambassador in the Engineering 110 class. That's what they call their teaching assistants, pretty much. So I'll be leading a few discussion sections on Fridays, and it's a very cool class because it's catered towards it's non-obligatory, and it's catered towards first year students who are coming in engineering and don't know really what they're interested in or all the opportunities they're offered. So it's sort of like a guidance and advisory class. So I'll be teaching a few of those sections on Fridays, which I'm excited for because I know I was in that position freshman year, so I'd love to help some other people along. And so that's just for this semester. And this is actually my final semester, my senior year. I'll be done with my undergrad in December. And then I'm looking to enroll in the SUGS program, which for those of you who don't know is our 1 year master's program in the engineering department. So I'll most likely be enrolling in that and then doing that in material science as well. And then after that, it's a little far in the future, but ideally, I'm looking to get into the industry. Um, uh, I'm thinking something like tech that really interests me. I like a lot of the research we do around here on, say, like thin films and semiconductors, things like that. So I think that would be most optimal.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe in a year we'll have the conversation again of, well, you're almost done with your master's degree. Now what happens? But that's a problem for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd like to talk about MMS for a little bit, and just starting with a big picture question. Student societies are a huge part of academic life, and I'm curious to hear your take on just why you think student societies are important in general. What are needs that students have that these sorts of organizations fill? And then specifically to MMS, what is MMS doing to try to be, a useful student society that serves its membership?
All right, great question, great question. So, in from what I've seen, as to what MMS offers to our department, um, so specifically for smaller departments such as material science, I think it's vital for us to have an exterior organization that organizes events and socials and gatherings just to build that sense of community. Because I know when I first started in this department, there's there's a very distinct sophomore cohort, junior cohort, and senior cohort, and oftentimes they don't have any coinciding classes, right? So very distinct groups of people, and in such a small department, it's vital that we build a large, I guess, like a friend group really between
Mm-hmm.
all of the grade levels. So in that respect, it's very vital to have, like I said, an organization that organizes these social events, um, so people can just intermingle. We can get a larger sense of community, because if you think about it, in like the mechanical engineering department, one of their classes is the size of our whole department, right?
Right.
So yeah, just building that up, especially being a smaller department, um, and also just getting people out of their house. I know a lot of people, if they don't have classes on a certain day, they don't even come to campus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you have student orgs that have um, uh, events like luncheons where food is catered, right? Um, that's a big way to bring the engineers to the campus, get them involved, get them talking to you know industry professionals, um, and again build that community that I was talking about. So
Yeah. Since you just mentioned the industry connections, what do you foresee happening this year, or I guess what are you planning for this year for MMS that will happen in the industry space with helping students get connected with internships, professional development, job opportunities? What does that look like this year?
yeah, we have a lot of great opportunities coming up. So over the summer, we pretty much secured our whole fall semester schedule for luncheons. So for those of you who don't know, MMS has Friday luncheons every single Friday, where we invite in a professional from some industry, and they tell us about their business and the materials issues that they've had to handle, and all these sorts of projects. And then we have a Q&A at the end, and we also cater food at these events. So we already have a very great lineup. That this tomorrow or today we have First Solar. It's a solar cell company coming in, and then in the following weeks we have Lightspeed with Chip. We have L&L, Boeing, Wolfspeed, Ford, Tesla, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a very good lineup of companies that I think also are in diverse sectors of the engineering market. So that's the big one. But some other events that I'd like um, to start is a resume building event, which I'd like to have optimally before our career fair, because I know just from my experience, even just last year, looking back at my resume, it was really rough. So I can imagine other students will probably have a similar experience, and just getting it to look nice and, getting it in chronological order, things like that are small steps to, landing that interview and landing that job. So I'd like to have an event before the career fair, but that's in 2 weeks. So it's a bit of a tight time frame, but we'll see if we can swing that. And then sort of as a part two to that, I'd like to have like an elevator pitch event where we have some professionals or even just the board at MMS creates this fictional engineering board, and we give people mock interviews, ask them to sell themselves in 1 minute, that sort of thing. And that's to prepare them for interviews that they may not have had experience with previously. Um, so those are two big professional building events that I'd like to see happen really within the month, with before career fair, and then the mock interviews before interview season. So
Yep. Yeah, practice interviews would be fantastic. I know when I was job hunting long ago, I just walked into a lot of my interviews cold and sort of hope for the best. And if I had had some sort of official structure, at school or in my social circles, even where people were saying, "Hey, let's practice interviewing because it's a skill that you develop," that would have been a huge help. So it's really great to hear that that is in the plans for our current students.
mm-hmm.
Now, career fairs are also a special animal because there's a lot of wrangling that has to be done just organizationally, logistically, to make all these things happen. So since you've been in the driver's seat for not very long, as far as being the MMS president, I'm curious to hear if there are any early struggles or even surprises that came up that you just had to deal with and say, oh, I guess this is my problem now. So any cats you've had to herd, any stories to tell from the new leader perspective?
Yeah, so since a bulk of my experience now has just been from over the summer, that's actually where I did most of my work leading up to now. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole board was doing work, right? It wasn't just me, obviously, but the biggest struggle on my end was getting companies for luncheons. That was a big thing. I was sending out, tens of however many emails each day just to contacts that I may have even heard of, or people I get from word to mouth. Sending out emails, sort of just shots in the dark at these companies to, first to get them to come to our school for luncheon. And then I also asked them to see if they can sponsor the food as well, because we are a student organization that
Mm-hmm.
needs funding for these things. And the food's a big motivator for a lot of students to come. So that's a key ingredient we need for these events. So yeah, just I find that sometimes I can hook them with the whole luncheon event, but then if I ask for funding, it's just they leave me on red, so to speak.
Oh,
So
feels bad,
um,
man.
yeah, that was a big issue I'd overcome. But with enough emails, enough manpower, you can get enough replies and people who are willing to come and sponsor lunches. So
Yeah.
it's really just um, sending out as many emails to as many companies as you can think of, and every 1,000 emails you send out, you get a response.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's the law of
exaggerated.
large numbers at
Yeah,
work, right? As long as
yeah,
it's not impossible, if you try enough times, eventually it'll work.
yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, I certainly appreciate your efforts on behalf of the students. It sounds like the set of companies coming in this year is going to be a really good list of people to work with. So I'm happy to hear
hmm
that
Yeah,
in the
should
end,
also.
it's all been worth it.
Yeah, it should be a very diverse range of companies as well. We have polymer companies, we have metal alloy companies, we have ceramic companies.
Hmm.
It's just all across the spectrum. So I'm excited.
Yeah. That might be a perfect lead into my next question, which is MMS is the Michigan Materials Society. And even though it's open to all students, the large majority of the membership and participation is from MSE. And now that you've been doing the MSE thing for a few years, I'm sure you've participated in other social stuff on campus. I'm curious to hear your take about what's special with materials specifically, and what makes a materials centered student organization different from other student orgs around campus.
Yeah, I actually I love this question. I've been running info booths pretty much in this past week. So I've been kind of getting my pitch down to a
Mm-hmm.
science of pitching to first and second year students. Why materials. And one of my big selling points really is that there's so much intersectionality in material science with a bunch of the other departments. But then we're still our own unique department, and go so in depth in the content. So, we have intersectionality with the mechanical engineering department. Chemical engineering is a big one. Electrical, computer science, biomedical, right? You name it. We have biomaterial classes. We have a lot of computational material science classes, and obviously the chemistry portion's a big part. We work hand in hand with that department. But then you could just go so much more in depth. Going down to the atomic level. How do you design these materials to best fit your need? And then a second um, sort of pitch I give to students is I ask them to name the first engineering company that comes to mind, right? So they say
Mm-hmm.
something like Boeing, and I go, what do they create? They go, airplanes, right? So I go, all right, that's metals, metal alloys, ceramics, polymers, right there, right? And
Right.
you can play this game with any engineering company, engineering firm that creates a product, right? They have niche needs um, in their company for materials they need to design to lightweight them, to make them stronger, to make them more conductive, all
Mm-hmm.
these different properties. And that's exactly what we learn in the department is how you can cater these materials to your needs.
Yeah. I
So,
love that. That's such a good way to like flip the process on its head and say, hey, student, tell me what you're interested in. What's a company that you've heard of? And then to just have that on tap of, and here's what they do with materials. I'm a big fan of that. I should try to
mhm.
work that in more often when I'm talking with potential recruits.
Yeah. And the second aspect of that is it shows that material scientists are very employable, right? Because
Right.
that's a big concern for the incoming students. A lot of people default to like computer science because that's, well, I guess maybe
Right.
not currently. I've heard there's a bit of a dip there, but that's been known as one of the most employable fields, and you get a very successful job. But in material science, right, you can go anywhere in the engineering
Mm-hmm.
world, really, or even consulting too. So um, there's just a lot of opportunity there that people aren't aware about. So,
Yeah, that's a conversation that is happening a lot more lately, is trying to get more of the awareness to high school students, to parents, that this is an area that you can really have a very successful career in. It's not just like there's one materials person hired by this one company. You can go anywhere and do anything. And because everything's made out of materials, right? That's that's the standard joke, but it's really true. Okay. Um, Looking ahead, I want to set aside MMS for a moment, just talk about student life a little more broadly. Uh, Micah, you and I were discussing this before we started recording, but there is a pretty large segment of our audience that is on the faculty side, professors, lecturers, this sort of thing. And some of us do a better job than others of staying connected with the student experience, but it's absolutely true that you get to our side of the classroom, so to speak, and you lose touch with normal everyday student life. So, this is your chance to have a soapbox for a minute. What's something that you, as a student, wish that your professors, your instructors would be more aware of? Like, what is it about student life that you're living every day that we've just completely forgotten about, that if only we could remember about it, it would make our teaching and our interactions with you more effective and more meaningful?
yeah, so I guess my answer for this is going to be a little basic, but I think it's all the more true. And I just want to reinforce it is that there are just so many opportunities, social opportunities to be had, especially for undergraduate students, first and second year students. Um, that sort of like almost overwhelms students a lot of the time. So I remember my first year here. At some point, I was involved in, say 5+ clubs, really just trying to get my foot
Oh
in the
wow.
door, seeing what everyone's about, right? So I checked out the solar color project team here at U of M. I was part of a project team called MSave, checking what they were all about. I participated in the jujitsu club here for a couple of days, just to sort of gander, sort of, see what I'd be interested in. But during that time, you have obligations every single day. You're going to all these different events, meeting all these different people. Then on top of that, you have classes with professors, who are obviously very great at what they do, but they are, usually only in their realm of research, right? And they're
Hmm.
obviously not undergraduate students at the school, so they're not seeing these social events or know, that all these things are going on. Like, I mean, the University of Michigan has like hundreds of unique clubs and societies that students join. Um, so that I'd say that's a big factor I'd like faculty to be conscious of, especially for first and second year students who are just, going in and out of these opportunities.
Hmm.
Um, it can be very hectic, especially for, you know, like I said, new college students who are just getting used to scheduling their life efficiently.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great point, and it's something. The irony of the unawareness, if that's even a word, is all the more so because this is something that we faculty often brag about our students is, man, our students are so great, they do like all these clubs and all these projects and all these things. And so there's some level of awareness there, but then when it actually translates into the, what do you mean you don't have time on 2 o'clock on Thursday to do this thing, that goes out the window a little bit.
mhm,
So to have that something to be reminded of, yeah, our students are awesome because they're so involved and so engaged and have such diverse interests that also translates into a very real uh, scheduling impact that is something that we need to be mindful of. And it's important, I absolutely believe, for us to support engagement in these activities because this is where you're getting your professional experience. This is how you build up that resume so you can, you know, put things there and have a social life and be just engaged in the broader community. So, yeah, that's a great point to bring up.
mhm.
Maybe, well, now that you're a little older and wiser, 4 years later, 3 years later, um, if you could like go back to freshman Micah, right, first semester Micah, and drop some advice and say, here's the thing that you really need to know as a first year student, what would that advice be? Would it be something about participating in clubs? Would it be something about classes? What do you think like every freshman should know about college life?
Yeah. So, like everyone says, first year students always, seem to have this pressure of like needing to know exactly what they're going to be doing, their senior year. But you talk to anyone in their senior year, they say, I have a completely different path than when I started, right? My freshman self wouldn't have known that I'm here at all, right? So alleviating that sort of pressure that you need to know exactly what you're doing. And then piggybacking off of my previous answer, yes, trying to just discover as many different societies, clubs as you can to see what group of people you can really fit into. Because having a group of people that understand you and that have a similar interest with you, things like that, can really help accelerate your social development, your maturity, right?
Yeah.
Being able to just confide in people that you trust. And one big thing that my RA my first year in the Bursley dorms had always said is keep your door open, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like keep your door open. You never know who you're going to meet, what sort of opportunities that'll come along. So my freshman year, I actually met all the people that I've been living with for the past 2 years in our house, just from the dorms, right? So we became very good friends. One night we went out at like 10 or 11
Yep.
and built an igloo right outside of Bursley. We used our metal trash
Nice.
cans. We packed them in and stayed out till 2 o'clock because we just wanted to build this thing. So, yeah, just keeping your door open. You never know what'll happen. Never know who you'll meet. Might be lifelong friends. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's a great point about there's some big advantages to being crammed in a single building with a bunch of other people who are in the same situation as you. And the lifelong friends point is absolutely valid. My friend who ended up living down the hall from me in the dorm freshman year, we are still friends to this day. Like he was, at my wedding. We still talk every couple weeks on, Discord or on the phone or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's a real enduring friendship. And basically it happened because he lived down the hall and his door was open and we started hanging out. And 20 years later, here we are. So that is fantastic advice. One more elder Micah's wisdom, if I may be so bold. Suppose now we're talking to a student who's just declared MSE. So they're saying, all right, this is it. I'm going to do the materials thing. Now what? What's the now what? What should someone do to get started in this field that we share?
okay. Well, first of all, come to our MMS events. That's a big thing. Get incorporated in the community. But more generally speaking, I like to think that our department in particular has such a diverse um, set of professors with different like researching interests. So if research is something this person is interested in, just going around talking to professors, seeing what they're doing in their labs is a very cool way to really spark your interest, right? You go to one professor, see what they're doing, you're not too interested. Right next door, the next professor is, doing what you've been dreaming of for your whole life, right? So
Mm,
that's a very cool aspect of material science in particular that I found. Um, just being able to, the professors in our department are very easygoing in that respect. You can chat with them and then get in, as an undergrad, get in and start working in their lab, getting connected that way. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, just going to social events in your department. I'd assume the same case is true for a lot of MSc departments around the world, where it's much smaller compared to a lot of the other engineering disciplines. So, um, being able to know your peers will be super useful, especially um, when you guys are all taking very challenging classes. You need to work with one another on figuring out homework problems or like trying to understand a lecture, right?
yep. Hmm.
uh, Especially when you're getting introduced to quantum mechanics, right? The famous quote is, "If you understand quantum mechanics, you don't actually get it," or
Right.
something along those lines. So just all these new concepts coming in as out of high school, right? You just need to have a strong group of students that you can bounce ideas off of and like I said, work together, collaborate for these tough classes. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that just goes back to having the door be open, right? So
yeah,
that might be the theme of our episode. Leave the door open. I think that's a great takeaway.
yeah, I love that.
I suppose we're starting to talk about other institutions a little bit as well and the importance of meeting people and building these social connections. Let's imagine that someone out there in audience land is in an MSE program that does not have a student society, that they don't have an equivalent of our Michigan Material Society, but maybe they want to start one. what would that look like? MMS has been around so long here. I don't know how it started or how it even would get started, but if someone wanted to create a new MSE student social organization of some kind, where do you think they should get started? What would be the right nucleus to grow around?
So I guess a good way to answer this question is reflecting on how I got very involved in MMS. So last year, I was taking classes with a lot of friends in the junior and then senior class, like cohorts. So I was actually able to make a lot of connections in both of these grade levels, and because of that, like I knew a lot of people in the department, and I was able to personally reach out to people, invite them to events, things like that. So first being well known in your department to be that person that can get people out of their shells and invite them to events,
Yeah,
right? So there's that, and then in actually creating the society, it really helps if you build up your professional connections, right? So like I said about sending out emails, like hundreds of emails is mandatory. You just have to reach all the depths of the world to find companies or find organizations that might want to help you build your society, which is pretty much what we're doing when we're inviting companies for luncheons, right? They're helping us build our events, build our society. So getting those connections is vital. And then the food aspect is a big one. Offering food at your events, if you're
it
able
is
to,
true.
that's the winner. That gets all the students coming. Apparently, a lot of people love Panda Express, which is a pretty good option for us. So when I say that, people's ears perk up and they're like, "Oh, let's go to the luncheon. It's going to be great."
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so that really increases the involvement as well, which makes sense,
Yeah, of
especially for like
course.
first and second year students who might only be stuck on dining hall food. It's good to cater every once in a while. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, those are my big points for getting the most involvement in a when you're just starting a
Yeah, that
society.
all makes sense. Uh, I know you have to get going pretty soon to get ready to set up the lunch for MMS.
Yeah.
So I don't want to eat up your whole morning, but definitely thanks for coming and spending this time with me. Hopefully, some people out in the audience get to benefit from hearing about what MMS will be up to this year and just more about the student experience and student social life in general. I do always like to wrap up an episode with just a little bit of the red carpet treatment. So, this is your open floor. If there's anything you want to shamelessly promote, if there's any companies that maybe you're hoping to land a sweet gig with that you want to put the word out there, this is your opportunity to plug anything and everything that you feel like before we call it a day. So, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know we've been talking about MMS this entire time, but I do want to say for those who are local, come to our MMS luncheons. This week we're expected to get upwards of 60 plus participants at our luncheon, which is kind of pushing it for our room size. But the more the merrier. If we keep these numbers up, we can get bigger rooms, get
Yep.
more food. So it's a big one. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll be graduating with hopefully with my master's in next December. So I'll be trying to get in the industry there. I want to get into more tech related fields. One thing I was fascinated with, I took this course that showed us the focus ion beam, which is able to do circuit surgery. So I was told, or you can ablate materials and deposit materials on the microscopic scale. So work with that looked very interesting. Anyway, uh, yeah. So if anyone out there is hiring, my email is micahgen@umich.edu. So send me a send me an email. I'd love to chat. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Intel, Apple, we know you're out there.
There you go.
Let's draw Micah a line. Okay, I think that is it for today. So, Micah, thanks one more time for coming and spending the time with us, being on the episode. It's been great to talk with you. And for everyone else out in the audience, thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Undercooled, and we will see you in the next one.
All right. Bye.